Welcome back, everybody, to Twitch Tips Done Quick. My name is Travis, also known as All Fun and Games, and today we're going to be talking about specific settings that you're going to put in your OBS or your Streamlabs or whatever program that you're using in order to basically stream onto Twitch and or YouTube. So if you went back to the further episodes, you would have noticed, okay, we went through the process of talking about computers, what kind of specs you want. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that on what I would recommend and or like specific recommendations in the next video. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about what settings you should be putting into your OBS. Now, under your OBS, when you begin to start it up now, you have the options of doing a quick tutorial. Basically, OBS does everything for you. It's a lot nicer now. Or you can do where you enter the settings yourself. I recommend doing a quick tutorial because that'll automatically add your stream key. It'll automatically add specific settings, and it'll kind of get you through the process that you kind of need to in OBS. But that being said, you still want to go through the settings yourselves and make sure that it's doing what it should do and not actually undermining your internet. For example, if you have really high speed internet and you're only streaming at 2500 bitrate, that wouldn't make any sense. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try doing a speed test. So if you go to speedtest.net, for example, and you run a speed test, and let's just say your speeds are like 200 megs down and 200 megs up. Well, you're pretty much in the clear to do whatever you want. If you're streaming, pretty much if your upload, it's the biggest thing is upload. Your download kind of doesn't really matter. Like it does matter, but not really. It's only upload that you really care about. So I'm going to basically say it like this. There's a lot of guides online that'll tell you what your upload speed should be and how to kind of determine like what the best rate is at. You're going to have to play around yourself because upload speeds fluctuate. So for example, I have fiber internet here. So that means upload speed is generally consistent, never really going down. However, there's coaxial, meaning like cable internet. There's DSL, there's satellite internet. And all those will fluctuate. Everything except for fiber will fluctuate, okay? So because light speed is basically consistent, whereas all the other speeds can be interrupted by like interference and whatnot. So generally your upload speed or your bit rate will always fluctuate no matter what. It'll never stay at the same. It just doesn't, this is not how it happens, okay? So even though I have fiber, when I stream, my bit rate is set to 6,000, but sometimes it'd be 6,000, 6,500. That doesn't mean that I'm losing frames. It just means that internet's consistently sending and receiving data, right? So it's never going to be consistent unless you're basically plugged into Twitch's servers like directly. So in this case, you're going to want to make sure that you do a speed test. Go to speedtest.net. If your download speed is like 10 megs or higher, you're happy. Even 5 megs for download is fine. Now for your upload, I would say the same thing. Minimum, you should try to be getting 5 to 10 meg up. If you're getting less than that, you're going to have to lower your bit rate to kind of like, you're going to have to kind of like compensate for that. But 10 megs or higher, and you should be able to stream at 6,000, which is the recommended on Twitch, depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to shoot you over to the Twitch recommended, which is on stream.twitchtv.com/encoding, where you can see the exact numbers that I'm talking about. So as you can see here, when you go through the settings, I'm gonna talk about those settings here in a minute under OBS, but basically they're recommending that if you're streaming at, which I mentioned before, 720p 60 fps or 720p 30 fps, max is 4500 required, and your resolution size is 720. Now this is basically, you're probably looking at this and like, I have no idea what this means. I'll show you here in a second where to put it into it. But basically what they're saying is, look, if you're gonna be streaming at 720p, you don't need to max out a 6K bit rate because it doesn't really matter. 4500 will do everything you need, and that way you're not utilizing all your upload. But if you have the upload to use it, max that out, make it nice, and the better the bit rate. For example, if you're like, I'm gonna stream at 1080p, but I'm gonna make my bit rate 2000 or 2500, basically it's gonna look like garbage because the bits that are getting the internet basically is not keeping up, like the bit rate is not keeping up with how many frames are on the screen. That's why even when I stream on 1080p right now, people still say, Travis, your camera gets a little bit fuzzy whenever you're doing like FPS games and stuff. Well, that's just normal. So that's why most high-end streamers like Tim the Tatman and stuff, you'll see they never stream in 1080. They're always streaming at like 920, or I think it's like 910p or whatever it is. That basically 960p is like the downgraded version of 1080 because Twitch's servers don't really handle 1080p like past 8,000 bit rate and you need to get at least minimum 10,000 or 15,000 to properly stream 1080p. So when you see big like big tournaments and stuff, they basically ask Twitch for permission to up their bitrate. And that's basically how they go about it. So in this case, yeah, 6,000 is good for 1080p. It's still a little bit of distortion, but don't worry about too much about that. Kind of focus on just these numbers. You can go to the website. I will link the website in the video so you guys can go to that and kind of look at what you need yourself. But just kind of like, this is kind of like a base guide on what you should do. So you go into your OBS settings. What's the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to go in, you're going to look through your specific settings here. So here you go. Here's just my settings that I have. You have your next thing, which shows you your stream. It shows you like if you want to automatically connect, which most people will do. You choose the server that you want. I choose USD Chicago because I find that it's best for me. My output, these are my current settings, which are similar to the ones that are recommended directly on Twitch. My audio is set to default. And then of course you have your base resolution, meaning what you are seeing on your screen. And then your output scale, meaning what you're going to see on the stream itself. That's why you get 1080p. Put that down to 720. As I mentioned, you should be doing that on your own. Then you can set your hotkeys and more advanced functions, which don't really matter. Now, going back to the output, I'm under the advanced function. You can set yourself in simple, but if you have a video card, meaning if you have like a video card that supports NVNC, I would highly recommend choose that encoder. And then you go next to, if you want to rescale your output, which you don't really want to. So uncheck that. CBR is the default, which is recommended for them. And the rest are basically explained on Twitch's category here. The look ahead and the visual tuning, these most likely will probably, one of these will be checked off for you. You can leave that normal. But the biggest thing to rely on is your bitrate. You can play around with that, but like I said, if you're planning on streaming at 720p, leave it at 4,500 as long as it's okay, and as long as you're not fluctuating, you should be fine. 3,000 is okay, but I really don't recommend that just because I find that if you are streaming with that, you're gonna find that 3,000 just might not be enough, and people might say like, "Wow, you're getting like looks a little choppy on our end." You know what I mean? I've done it before when I first started streaming. Immediately I went up to 4,500 and everything looked a lot nicer, and I was streaming at a 720p FPS. Even nowadays, I still go through the process where I want to go back to streaming a 720p, and that's just because everybody can support it. Like the majority of the people's internet is good enough for that, and not necessarily good enough for 1080p. In the next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more into hardware and what I would recommend for a good gaming computer and or for a good laptop. Once again, I will put this link in the description. So if you guys want to see these, if you guys want to play around with these settings, once again, go ahead and put these in and make sure that you run yourself a speed test.net so you can see your thing. I would also recommend running speed tests at least 3 or 4 times. Don't just run it once and say, hey, those are my speeds. Run it 5 times or 4 times and take the average upload speed that you get out of that to calculate what you do. Okay? I will see you guys in the next video. See you then.